Hello and welcome to the Stockyard Industrial Lead. I'm Eric Miller, and today we're going to continue our series of talking about the details of operations that I apply into these different customer spurs on the layout. And so today we're going to cover blue flags. Now, the blue flags are kind of an interesting aspect. They're another thing that I do on the layout to basically slow the operations down a little bit and make the conductor and engineer that are running the trains think a little bit more. So as I've mentioned previously, on my operations, when I hold op sessions, I use a crew of 2 people that operate the local that serves all the industries. So I have one engineer basically in control of the locomotive and a conductor that does everything else. The conductor strategizes the movements for the cars between each industry, and they also need to, throw the switches and do the switch locks that I've covered before, and they also deal with the blue flags. So just a little bit of background on blue flags. There's an official FRA rule for blue flags that all railroads have to follow. Now there's a lot more detail into this. I'm just going to cover the basics, but it's essentially found under FRA Part 218, and it says that blue signals must be displayed in accordance with this part to signify that workers are on, under, or between railroad rolling equipment. And so when a blue flag is displayed, the equipment may not be coupled to, the equipment may not be moved, other rolling equipment may not be placed on the same track so as to reduce or block the view, and rolling equipment may not pass a displayed blue signal. So it's basically saying that, hey, there's something going on with this car and it can't be touched or moved or basically messed with because it could hurt somebody. And so in other words, you're coming into a car to switch it or something like that, and you can't say like, oops, didn't see you there, because you've got the blue flag out there. So it really is a good way to prevent accidents in the real world. And on the layout, as I mentioned, I like to use it to slow the operations down a little bit. So some layouts that I've operated on before where the layout hosts might want to cram as much switching into an area as possible and move a ton of cars. You're just going zipping in and out of the industries, right? I'm sure a lot of people that have switched or operated on layouts have been there before. I don't find that particularly fun, especially because it's kind of like a big race, right, to get it done with. And instead, I like to take my time. I like to do it right, and I like to be a little more prototypical. So I find that this is one of the ways that makes crews think a little bit more, especially because it's right there. It's in the way. Okay, so in this view that I have, we're in Albright, you can see I've got 3 blue flags here. And so I've got one sitting here in front of the locomotive. I've got one on this track before the hopper, and then I've got one on that track by the center beam flat car. And so if you look closely, you can see that each car could be getting worked on, right? Or each basically piece of rolling equipment. So you got the locomotive here, looks like must be getting fueled because I see the fuel truck there. So we definitely don't want to move it. Got this covered hopper that looks like it's getting unloaded there, or at least ready to. Probably can't be unloaded yet, have to move the tarp out of the way. And then this car here, the bulkhead flat car with drywall wallboard, we got a forklift there getting ready to start unloading it. So lots of activity. So what I require the crews to do on my layout is basically check with the industrial foreman and to ask them, hey, is it okay if we work this area? And then the industrial foreman will then move the blue flag. And so that is me. The blue flag needs to be removed by the person who put it there, the worker that put it there. And so I'm usually the one who put it there on my layout, so it makes perfect sense for me to do that. And so during my op sessions, I serve as the industrial foreman, in addition to some other just miscellaneous tasks. And so it's something that kind of helps keep me engaged during the op session, something fun to do. And then I can always tell a crew, it's like, well, you might want to come back in a little bit, or can you wait just a little bit, or maybe sometimes I'll throw in a realistic scenario like that. But most times I'll just say, yep, that's okay. I've removed the blue flag and feel free to come in. So it's just a simple matter of taking the blue flag off the rail. So I'll show you what I use to create my blue flags. So first of all, I've got a tub of these that I keep in my little drawer with all of my other conductor equipment. And so that way there's extras. Usually what I do is I will just leave these on the spur. So like, for example, if a spur has been switched and there's no longer a car there, or anything that needs to have this blue flag protection, I'll just set it there on the side, kind of out of the way. But if a car is there, I'll put it on the rail. So basically what these are, they're a type of electrical connector. And so it's really simple. And they're the perfect size for grabbing around the rail. And so you see that center part there, and it just fits perfectly on a HO scale track. And then it'll set there. So basically all I have to do is bend it a little bit, because it'll be straight. So just bend it a little bit and bend it in like that. So that way it's kind of, weighted so it doesn't flip over. And then it just hugs the rail nicely. So this is code 83 track. I've got some, I guess maybe I don't anymore. I think all my track is code 83, but I've noticed that it'll work as well on code 70, code 100 HO scale track. So it's pretty versatile. And these are super cheap to get. So they work great, and they're blue just like in real life. Now, if this were at night, it would need to be lit up. I don't have nighttime sessions, so I don't have to worry about that. I'm sure there's other cool ways that us model railroaders, or you model railroaders out there, can figure out other ways of doing this, but this is just my techniques that I wanted to share with you. So again, it's just something. So before, I'll always have a blue flag set up next to the locomotive that we're going to run with for the session. And so that way the crew kind of has to think, okay, is this ready to go? If it's being fueled, kind of check, make sure that it's done being fueled before moving it. Oops. And then also, as with, and this is the real important thing when coming into an industrial spur, and before you start backing in, make sure that it's okay to come into that spur and switch the equipment. So that's the most important part, I think. And just taking that time to slow it down and think, okay, is it safe to switch this? And then continue. And I think it kind of creates a less stressful environment. Sure, it's an extra task that you kind of have to, somewhat worry about or deal with, right? But I think it's fun, because it's like, okay, this is kind of cool. We're doing something that is pretty close to what the real railroad does. So that's basically it. That's what I wanted to share with you. So again, I have these at all of my industries. Anywhere there is a piece of rolling railroad equipment that can move. And if I've got a track with several cars on it, I'll just use the one blue flag just kind of at the beginning. That's what I do. And it works pretty well. I've been doing this for, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years now, and the crews seem to understand it and know how it works. And like I mentioned with the switch lock, sometimes the crews will forget to unlock it. With this, the crew's not going to forget to do something about it, because it's right there. It's right in the way. Now, I have had some crews in the past, they'll just move it themselves. But that doesn't happen too often. I think most of the time, like, oh yeah, I need to check with the industrial foreman. So it's a pretty obvious thing. So the only other thing that I use that I can cover real quick that probably doesn't deserve its own full video are these brake chocks right here. This yellow one that you can see, this is another electrical connector. This is a bigger one. I just wanted a different color, essentially. And I really wanted something that I could put where I have like little grades that have crept in. Like for whatever reason, this piece of plywood kind of moves down a little bit. And so I've got a bit of a grade. And this is just another connector that I've bent. And what I usually do is just place it right underneath the wheel where it's rolling, and then it'll kind of roll onto it and just stay there. So that's another thing. And then I have a similar tub that I keep those in. So that's the other thing that I use on my spurs. But again, I just keep those in places where I know there's a little bit of a grade where cars will roll, and don't use it all over the place. So all right, so that's all I wanted to cover. This is essentially the end of the series on these operational details at customer spurs. If there's anything else that you want me to cover that you've seen on my operations, let me know, and I can make another video on that. I'd be happy to. And next week we'll do another ops video, and then we'll start covering other parts of the layout. Maybe I'll show you some more progress that I've been doing in other areas. So thanks again for watching, everybody, and I will see you next week here on the Stockyard Industrial Lead.